world. We have seen specific effects of excessive hunting. So in China, they have what they call as a freshwater dolphin. So I know most of you are familiar with dolphins, but the dolphins that you are familiar with actually live on seawater, on the sea. But in China, specifically in the Yellow River or in the Yangtze River, they have their own species of a freshwater dolphin. But this freshwater dolphin is now extinct. And the reason for the extinction of this freshwater dolphin is because the population of people along the Yangtze River or the Yellow River increased. So nung dumami yung tao, the fishermen who are getting fish from the river also increased. So nung dumami yung mga fishermen, kumonti na yung fish population in the river. And nawalan na ng pagkain yung freshwater dolphin. So marami na siyang ka-competition for the food, for the fish that is present in the river. Kaagaw niya na yung maraming taong nabubuhay or naninirahan on the river banks of the Yellow River. So eventually, nung wala nang makain yung dolphin, it eventually died. So the last time that they saw a freshwater dolphin was in 2004. After 2004, they no longer saw any freshwater dolphin.
Sir, yung freshwater na dolphin, sir, sa ano lang yun, sir, no? Doon lang sa China.
Yes.
Kasi may iba pa, sir, eh. Meron pang Amazon River.
Yes po. Yung species lang na nag-extinct is the one that lives in the Yellow River or in the Yangtze River. So the last time that they saw a living freshwater dolphin in the Yellow River was in 2004. After that, wala na silang nakita. And the reason for these dolphins dying off is because they don't have enough food, because there is an increase in the number of fishermen who are getting fish from the river. So that is also an example of hunting. Okay? So if excessive yung isang bagay, yung isang abiotic factor, it can eventually cause negative effects to the lives of all the living organisms in that community or in that ecosystem. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to add additional ideas before we go to the next slide?
Sure.
Yes, Reina.
Sure, there's still, sure, in China, they still have they still have the most amounts of dolphins in China.
But not the freshwater dolphin, not the species of the freshwater dolphin.
No.
Yes, because they are already extinct, which is sad, di ba? Kasi one kind of organism had to die off because a lot of fishermen had to get...
Sure, tigers, sure, di ba less than 1,000 na lang?
Yung alin?
Tigers.
Oh, kasi also hunting, they get it for food at saka they get it yung kanyang fur, yung pattern ng kanyang fur. So it's being sold. Okay lang if it's sustainable, meaning you do not hunt a lot. For example, may period lang or intervals, frequencies on how many tigers you are going to hunt in a specific time. Pero nung dumami kasi yung tao, mas marami na yung hunters. So eventually, the number of tigers had to die down. So ayan, negative effect din yan. It's actually not just the tigers, even yung mga elephants,
Rhinos, lions.
yes, and other
Tigers,
Mostly
cheetah.
sa savannah, sir.
Cheetah.
Savannah.
Yes. Hunting is a common abiotic factor in a savanna. And for how many years we have seen the negative effect of these factor in the ecosystem of savannas. Kaya ngayon, usually meron na silang mga conservation programs in these savannas para nalilimit na yung hunting in that area para dumami na ulit yung population of the animals in that ecosystem.
Yeah. Di ba sometimes okay lang naman mang-hunt ng mga predator dahil baka pag dumami sila, baka maging dangerous yung area na yun, Chair. So, okay lang naman, pero wag naman masyado, di ba, Chair?
Kaya nga sinabi ni teacher may intervals eh.
Dati, nung konti pa lang tao. At saka nakadepende talaga sila sa hunting for a source of food. Okay lang kasi hindi naman ganun kabilis pumatay or mag-hunt ng mga predators dati. You remember, they're only using rocks or yung mga makeshift na mga spears and arrows. So,
Wala pa silang
yun.
weapons.
Pero ngayon kasi, hindi na nila nakokontrol yung hunting. So, nagkakaroon na siya ng negative effect. As long as it is controlled, as long as it is sustainable, hunting is actually fine. Pero yun nga, if we are doing it excessively, then it can also affect the ecosystem negatively.
Sure.
Yes po.
It's okay if you actually hunt a little bit or just wisely, then the ecosystem will still do fine.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. In this situation, we are still focusing on the same picture of the food chain, but this time, our abiotic factor is what we call as urbanization. So when we say urbanization, it means that we are converting one area into something that is livable by people. For example, we are creating the mountains to become subdivisions, or we are creating savannas to become areas for building of malls and other infrastructures. So how can this urbanization affect the ecosystem?
Sure, it's just simple. Carbon dioxide.
Okay, can you explain more?
Sure. The more the people in urbanization, the more the carbon dioxide will increase in the environment, which cause some animals to just die.
Okay,
Because they
so the idea of Reynald is that because of urbanization, it will make the quality of the air poorer. So there will be more pollution, air pollution to be specific. So yun yung negative effect niya doon sa mga living organisms. Any other answers other than air pollution?
Sure.
The animals
Sure.
would have
Wait lang,
migrate. Would
Candace,
need
wait
to
lang.
migrate.
Gian muna, Gian.
Sure, the animals' homes will be gone.
Yes, exactly. You are removing them from their natural habitat. Diba?
Yun yung sasabihin ko, Char.
Okay. So same idea. Sige nga, Kuya Kadesh, add more.
Magma-migrate sila, Chair, and would cramp them with other home of different animals.
Yes,
They would be cramped.
liit na yung area nila where they can live and where they can find food and other resources. So for example, dito sa atin sa Manggahan, some areas of the mountains are already converted into subdivisions. Even sa San Lorenzo, yung likod na ng mga Santa Monica, those are parts of the mountains that are converted into subdivisions. In SBMA, Biniktikan area is a mountain. It was formerly a mountain and it was converted into housing areas for people. So, sino ang nawalan ng bahay? It's actually the animals and the plants that originally lived there because we have to use it na maging bahay ng mga tao. So, nawalan na sila ng bahay, nawalan pa sila ng area where they can hunt for their food. Ayan. So, nangyayari yan anywhere else because we are building more buildings, we are creating malls, we are creating other infrastructures. So, sila na yung nawalan. Yes, they will have to find again. There is actually a movie about animals na pagising nila, subdivision na yung kanilang area. So, ang nangyari, the animals, they don't have food to eat, so they have to steal the food coming from the houses of the people, which is funny pero hindi siya also sad at the same time that these animals lost everything just because we are trying to become more
Teachers, Jared said fast builders though.
Totoo naman kasi if right now we isang bahay, it can only take how many weeks before you can actually finish them, yung construction of the houses. Ayan. So even urbanization, you're already relocating them. Hindi nga relocating you are depriving them of their natural habitat At the same time, ayan, sabi nga ni Reynald, syempre dumadami yung tao, nagkakaroon na ng pollution, mas dumudumi na yung area, we can experience an increase in air and water pollution because there are more people that are living there. So it can eventually affect the lives of all of these animals.
Sure.
Other than making the animals homeless, yes. Okay, Reynald?
Sure. Cities like Manila, Quezon, Southern Manila, actually, it's actually a lot more pollutant than in Olongapo, Subic, and some other smaller cities.
Yes, that's true because there are more people who are living in those areas. That's why they are called as highly urbanized areas because the population and the density of people living there is higher compared to areas in Subic and Olongapo. So again, it can eventually affect all of the lives of organisms in this food chain. Next, and the last situation, we are still focusing on the same ecosystem, but this time our abiotic factor is planting of trees and creating vegetable gardens. In what way can it affect this ecosystem? And if there is an effect, will it be a positive or a negative effect?
Sure. I kind of could say positive because number one positive thing in the vegetable gardens is that we don't have to eat meat sometimes.
Okay. Can I hear from Kuya Danstan? Kuya Danstan, do you think will it be a positive effect? And what kind of positive effect can we expect to happen in the ecosystem? Is Danstan here? Okay, sige, Danstan, type your answer na lang sa chat box. So, yeah, sabi ni Jared, yes, may positive effect siya because there are more areas for the other organisms or the other animals to live. So, for example, if you have a vegetable garden, it means that mas maraming place to live for the grasshopper, mas marami yung source of food niya. So, positive effect daw yon. Yes, the insects will live more comfortably if you have more trees and you have more vegetables, vegetable garden there. The quality of the air will also remain good because you have more trees who are producing clean oxygen. So it's a very comfortable and convenient area for the living organisms.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure, there are also advantages of planting trees. Number one, you don't have to use aircon, which decreases the payment of the bills of the electricity that you will pay. And number two, the trees also consumes sunlight, which causes photosynthesis.
Okay, so you also have more sources of food if you have trees and vegetables. Especially ngayon, napaka-expensive ng mga fruits and vegetables, di ba? If you have your own vegetable patch at home, hindi mo na kailangan mamili. So at the same time, you can save money from planting trees, especially fruit trees, at saka mga gardens where you can harvest your own fruits and vegetables. Okay, so any other additional ideas, Kadesh?
Teacher, paano pag negative? May negative effect. Paano, teacher, kapag yung owner ayaw niya ng insects tapos naglagay ng mga pesticide ganun?
That is a possibility, yes. Kasi if you create vegetable gardens or trees, syempre, it will really
You don't want, teacher, insects and animals.
it will really attract critters or insects kasi syempre talagang source of food and habitat nila yung mga yon. So, I think it's expected as long as it stays in the garden. Siguro, on your part na lang, put additional reinforcements na hindi makapasok yung mga insects inside the home. Pero yun nga, insecticides are actually more, anong tawag dito? More harmful compared to fertilizers. Oo. Kasi, anong tawag dito? And you have to remember that a certain insecticide will only work for a specific insect, pero not for all of the insects in your garden. So, kung gusto mo talagang mamatay silang lahat, you have to use multiple insecticides. And that can also be dissolved and can also be carried to the soil.
May isa pang negative, may naisip ako, Char.
Okay, ano pa?
Pwede ding di mo sinadya, Char, naglagay ka ng fertilizer. Tapos na-carry ng mga tubig na pag nag-flood.
Yes. So, ayun nga, as
So,
much
yun
as
lang.
possible,
Pwede.
natural fertilizers or and natural insecticides lang. Pero anyway, hindi naman masyadong inconvenient kung merong may, alam mo yun, kung merong may mga insects. Wag lang infestation siguro na sobrang dami.
Sure.
Another side of the situation, so pwede rin namang maging negative daw.
Sure. It's actually okay to put insects. Some insects could actually make the garden grow a lot faster. Some of them just eats the garden, the grass, and some of the plants.
Yes.
Yeah.
So another idea on a positive effect of planting trees and creating vegetable gardens is that you have more organisms that are able to absorb water. So in case of excessive rain, diba? Hindi siya you are safe from flooding because you have plants who are absorbing water from the soil. So mas tumataas yung absorbency ng ating mga soil because you have more plants there who are helping absorbing the water. So yun yung nangyayari in most areas. Mas mabilis silang magkaroon ng flooding at saka landslides kasi nawawala na yung mga plants and animals that live in that area. Okay, so again, there can be a positive and a negative effect, but I think in this case, overall, ang ating, we all agree that
Positive.
yes, it affects it more positively compared to the...
Char, natatakot lang ako dyan kapag daga na, Char. Pag nakakita na madaming insects. Dumami yung daga. Tatakot ako, Char. Biblis pa naman na, Char.
Yung dagang nakakatakot, yung black, is
Yung itim, Char.
not because of the plants, but because of the basura and the canal. So kung malinis yung kanal,
Ang bilis nila, Char, eh. Nakakatakot sila, Char.
Sir, pag nakakita na lang ako ng daga, kunwari, kinakausap ko sila. Kasi
you
sir, pag...
put cats in your in your garden, Kadesh. If the canal is clean daw, it's a miracle. Oo nga, ewan ko ba bakit ang hirap nating linisin ng mga kanal. Ang dami kasing taong mahilig magtapon ng basura sa kung saan-saan, kaya laging madumi yung kanal. So again, ayan, tayo na namang mga tao, that is another abiotic factor, how clean we are in the area, the discipline of the people in cleaning the ecosystem, kasi eventually it will, it will affect negatively yung mga other organisms. So with that idea, I think we already emphasized that yes, there abiotic factors, regardless if they are non-living organisms, regardless if they don't have life, they can affect the ecosystem. So can we answer this essential question? To what extent do changes in abiotic factors affect the ecosystem? Anybody? Can I hear from Kuya Jared?
Sir, mag-iisip po muna ako ng sagot. Wait lang, sir.
Okay, sige. Kuya Reynald.
Sure. Even though they're actually non-living thing, it's still very important to our environment, because without it, it may not possess any life to us, and the causes of the ecosystem may get unbalanced a lot.
Okay, so the idea of Reynald is there should always be a balance in everything. So anything that's excessive or anything that's not enough can eventually negatively affect the entire ecosystem. Any other
It should be
answers?
balanced. It should be balanced.
Yes, thank you, Kuya Reynald. Any other answers?
Sure,
Kaden?
I'm ready na.
Okay, ready na si Jared. Go, Jared.
Sure, the abiotic factors affect this ecosystem by helping the plants to grow, and the and eventually the plants will turn into trees and can make a place very lively, like just like what I said a few moments ago.
Okay, so it can positively affect the living organisms, especially because they can help producers grow, which allows more sources of food and more sources of oxygen, which is actually very important for the lives of the other animals in the ecosystem. Okay, any other ideas, Kadesh?
Teacher,
Okay,
it can affect the ecosystem, but it can be positive and negative. Just like urbanization, it is negative because there are the homes of animals can get lesser, and positive it's positive because uh, sunlight, the weather, yun nga, Chair, yung mga weather, Chair, just like what Jared said, it can help the producers grow.
Okay, sige. So, ang idea ni Kadesh is that it's a double-edged sword. It can be a positive effect, it can be a negative effect, depending on what we do with it. So, even urbanization can also be good as long as when we are planning, yung city planning, kung nasan yung mga buildings, kung nasan yung mga houses, as long as the city planning is done with respect to the other organisms din. Kasi minsan when we are doing the planning, ang iniisip lang natin, puro tayo, yung mga tao. We fail
Teacher, it's done little. It's literally done.
we fail to include the other organisms doon sa ating planning. We do not consider them and how it will affect them when we do the plans. So siguro, if kung merong magiging future engineers dito, ayan, I highly suggest na when we create these infrastructures, these buildings, or these subdivisions, ayan, sana tayo yung mga engineers who will be considerate enough to include how our plans will affect the other organisms in the community then. Wag puro tao lang. We also need to include them in our plans, and when we are considering how it will affect them. Will it be sustainable and a good effect, or maaaring maging negative effect siya? Okay? So ayan, thank you very much for those ideas. Now I'm going to leave you with this lesson, and it is a quote that says, "Do not harm and leave the world a better place than you found it." So ayan, it is part of our responsibility as stewards of the earth, di ba? Part of the core values of the school is our social responsibility to the community, at the same time, stewardship. So when we say stewardship, it means that we are given the responsibility to take care of the other creations of God. So if we as members of the community, of course, we should not do something negative to harm the environment. And if we can, or as much as we can, we should always do something positive to make sure that the world will remain a good place. So even pag tayo tumanda na at kayo ay nagkaroon ng anak na, the world that will be inherited by your future children will remain to be a good place for living. Wag naman na lahat na tayo ay very modern, tapos yung mga future generations, they will inherit on earth na masyado nang madumi yung air, masyado nang madumi yung water, so hindi na siya conducive for living. Ayan, Kuya Rinald, would you like to add?
Sure. Someday in the future, we will actually experience clean air, clean water, better place for living animals and humans as well.
Ayan, napakagandang legacy niyan if that is the legacy that we can live, that we can give to the future generations. Pero kung tayo ay we continue to harm our environment and in the future, hindi na magiging okay. So napakapangit naman ng legacy na iiwanan natin for our future, for the future generation. Yes. This responsibility is the responsibility of everyone. So individually, we should be contributing something positive to the environment. And then syempre, together with the government, ayan, kailangan we are working together with them. Pero yung mga simple na ideas such as throwing your trash in the proper areas, diba? That is an individual responsibility. So, kayo ba yung uri ng tao na pag naglalakad at kumakain ng candy, yung balat ng candy, tinapon nyo na lang sa daanan or ibinulsa ninyo at hinintay ninyo for you to find a trash can or the
Ano nilalagay ko sa kotse, Chair?
Ayan. So, yung iba kasi tinatapon lang sa kung saan-saan. That is an individual responsibility na hindi na kailangang i-monitor pa ng government but dapat tayo may sarili na tayong discipline to do that. Okay? So, wait until you are home and you can throw it in the proper area. Pwede namang ibulsa, pwedeng ilagay sa bag before wag na lang itapon sa kanal or sa kung saan. Okay? Ayan, tama, Jared. You keep them in the bag. And pareho tayo, Kuya Jared. Pag binuksan mo yung bag ko, puro basura. Kasi nakakalimutan.
Chair, may napanood daw sa TikTok, Chair.
Alisin.
Yung bag niya, Chair, galing sa 2020. Yung baonan niya, Chair, naiwan doon.
Ang dumi.
Pumasok siya ng 2022.
Ang dumi na nun. Okay, so, ayan. So, okay lang if it remains in your bag. And when it's time to clean, you can remove it from there. At least hindi mo siya